I should just make this, we'll wait for YouTube. I should just make this 9:20 because there's always something going on where I'm unable to make getting here, right at 9:15. People want to see me after Mass, and let me unplug that so it doesn't ring. People want to see me after Mass, and they, it's a little difficult. This is my mic system. That's why this is sticking out like this. So I thought, because I was running a little late, I thought I would make the cappuccino with you again. Let me move this chair out of the way for now. I think everyone can see what I'm doing here and hear me, I think, pretty well. So I thought, like I said, rather than make this without you being here and then being even later, I thought that I would make the cappuccino again, having you witness it once again. So anyway, this is the coffee that you put in this handle here. As you know, I use Illy. That's my favorite. Everyone has their own favorites, just a taste difference. I'm not saying that this is the best, the way they make the blend, or I think there are others that are just as good and maybe even better in the blend, or more expensive or less expensive. But this one to me appeals to my taste buds. So that's why I use it, Illy. So I put that in there, and then I pressed it on this, and then put it like this and get the cup. Put the cup underneath here, and let that pour out there. Like I said, espresso is not it's not like American coffee where it's mostly water and milk. It's a very pressed, concentrated flavor of coffee in a relatively small portion. So that's really what you do for a cappuccino is just espresso with foam milk. So I start the foam here. I put a mop bean. You need a mop bean because water comes out, and you don't want it to drip everywhere before it steams, like water comes out. And I don't want to put the milk in there because it'll be more water, in there. So I wait for it to steam. And again, the mop bean kind of helps protect, the water from going everywhere. I got to do it this way. I have to do it like this, or it doesn't come out right. I usually just let it skim. I let it skim the top, the espresso milk and milk. I use whole milk. I don't use anything else. Skim or 2% or, I feel like it's okay in the morning, for me at least, it's, how I feel. It's okay in the morning for me to have, whole milk and then burn it off, during the rest of the day. Doesn't pose that much of a problem. All right, so it seems like it's ready, so we shut it off. Shut off the steam. We have to clean the spout. Milk. And then I tap it a few times, and then I let it sit there, but today, because I don't want it to sit, we have to get this moving. I use a little espresso spoon, and I just separate. I pour the milk, so the milk just comes out and not the foam, because you want the foam on top. And so then I put the foam. And eccola, un cappuccino. Okay, so now let's sit down here. Sorry about that. That scrape of the chair. Well, welcome. I'm glad that you're with me for Cappuccino with Father Capoverdi. A lot has been happening lately. Of course, we've opened up, and now they're saying that we're able to. They're saying that we're even able to open up more. That what is it? I think it's like at 66%. I heard from the diocese. So that's a good thing. Our state is doing extremely well. Thanks be to God, to everybody involved. They're doing. We're all doing our part. Let's not get too crazy either. I always say that I see some people wearing their masks in their car alone. I don't know why they're doing that. I just don't know why. Do you ever see that? I'm driving around and I look and I see somebody with their mask on in their car and they're alone. I'm like, well, okay, I guess, this is going to help them some way. I think, and I don't mean to make fun of them, but I just think that that's how much how much fear is around right now. How much we're doing things sometimes when we're not thinking. We're making these decisions and we're not thinking. So we can't be hysterical or kind of go loopy over this. I want to announce that my secretary is retiring. It's kind of sudden. She told me a while back, maybe several months ago, maybe longer, that she was considering retiring because she has 10 grandchildren. They all live around the area, and she's been with me 10 years or 9 years. So she was thinking it's about time that she moves on, which is perfectly understandable, especially in that job. It's burnout. It could be much sooner. Not that she's burned out. She could do it 10 more years, but because she's been holding strong. But she, like I said, just her daughter is pregnant. She has to quarantine before being with the baby. And the daughter is a very, very dear friend of mine and someone I love very much. So I'm very excited that that Carla's daughter is going to have her mom with her. That's really important. I'd want her to do that. So I'm supportive of the decision 100%. And so as much as I don't want to lose her, of course, I'm not supportive of it because I want to lose her. Absolutely not. But I'm supportive because it's the right move for her. So that's great. She's going to be doing what she wants. She's going to still be involved. She's going to do the bulletin, volunteering from home. She's still she's gonna take over for the secretary when she gets sick or on vacation. If I need her for something, she's still a parishioner and a very active parishioner. Her husband is very, very active in the parish too. He's in the Knights of Columbus, and he's very much involved in the parish too. So I'll still be seeing a lot of her, I'm sure. And I'm friends with her. So, I go over her house at times, although I'm not able to do that now. But, when I could do that, I used to do that. So, we're changing the hours too. I want everyone to know that we're changing the office hours. I was going 9 to 2. 9 to 1. And then we were closing from 1 to 4. And then we opened from 4 to 6. Kind of wanted to do like the Italian style of office hours or from workplace open and closing. And it was good for Carla because Carla really enjoyed she can go to a peer appointment or she can go to a doctor's appointment and she can, be at home with her husband for a couple of hours because he's retired too. And then, she comes back at 4 o'clock and then it worked for her very well, actually. But a little bit of cutbacks. We want to cut back a little bit on our budget. And, we want to, with a new secretary, it might be very difficult for them to have those kind of hours. So we just made the office hours 9 to 2, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9 to 2. And then Friday, we're closed. I'm going to move my day off from Tuesday over Wednesday to Thursday over Friday. And there's been changes, huh? Because this is the first of the fiscal year. So that's why we, wanted to make these changes now because would be the best time to do it, at the beginning of the fiscal year. So, we'll see how we do. I'm very grateful that I call her Kay, Carla with a K. Tesaro is the helping out in July. because she's the teacher at the preschool, but she's able to do it for the month of July. Another woman who works for us, doing other things like a sexton and doing things, working in the sacristy, and she will be taking over August. So it gives me a little time, to figure out what we want to do and what's happening. So that's what's happening here. So I just want to say hello to everybody. I'm glad you're joining. Let me just Ave Maria, nice to see you. Kathy, Paul, Savino, hi. Paul, congratulations, Paul. I saw online. So that's beautiful. I think I put auguri, hopefully, in the comments. I meant to. Brenda Marie, great to see you in New York. I'm praying for you guys in New York. It's just so sad what's happening. It's sad what's happening in our country. It's sad what's happening with the police, and how are we ever gonna be safe? So I really feel for you. So we'll and what's happening in New York. So you're in my prayers. Doug, wow, Doug Horning, nice to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. I saw you recently at a family function, so it was good to see you. Carla is watching. So Carla, congratulations. Well, I'm very, very happy for you and I'm very happy for you in your endeavors now of being able to go on and be, like I said, full-time with your family. And like I said, she's leaving a very organized, beautiful office. Like it's run so efficiently, and I'm sure Kay is stepping in there now, and she's just, it's much easier when the transition is the person is able to be there for the transition. Of course, it makes it very, very easy. So we're really excited about that. And Carla, congratulations, and Godspeed on your endeavors. And like I said, we'll talk on the phone, but we couldn't see each other anyway, and so you weren't in anyway too, because of COVID. So we've been used to this kind of FaceTiming situation. So Lauren, nice to see you. Giovanni Di Bella, buon pomeriggio. Mary Bucalo, great to see you. Alessandro, buon pomeriggio. I hope these guys that are watching can understand English, because I always, enjoy talking to Italians and, being able to communicate with them. Tom, great to see you. Thomas, Bruzzese. Thomas, I have to talk to you about something. I don't want to do it now, but it's about one of your products. A friend of mine was telling me how awesome this product is that you have. I think it's like Pecorino Romano, and this guy is a great chef, and he swears by it. He's like, this is, so I got to talk to you about that. So we'll hopefully be in touch. Anne-Marie, my sister's watching. Hi. Janine, hi. Rosa, Leonetta, hi. Good to see you. My Aunt Mary is watching. Great to see my aunt and that you're doing well. Good morning to everybody who's saying good morning to me. Colleen, Colleen, good morning. Salvatore, great to see you watching. Let me see what's going on here. Okay. Susan Abe, great to have you here. So great. So, hold on. There's a little bit of back. Well, Francesca is here. Let's see if I can get Francesca. Francesca, you want to come with me? Good girl. Wow. All right. She didn't run away. So Francesca is here. Francesca. You want to say hello to everyone, Francesca? Huh? Want to say hello to everyone? Yeah, say hello. See, I have to have Francesca as part of the Cappuccino with Father Capoverdi because she's on the little opening thing, that little opening cartoon that John Tafoni made. So she, whenever she's around, right, she has to be a part of Cappuccino with Father Capoverdi. But she's been a very good girl. She has we have a little like closed-in patio with a high fence, and she loves to go out there. She's out there most of the day. Sometimes she gets into a little bit of mischief. I saw her chasing a chipmunk around there, and then luckily for it, it ran under the fence and got away. I'm always rooting for her prey to get away. But, you know, she means well. She's sweet, really, she is. She's just a predator. This is what cats do, right? They go out in the wild, and they like to hunt for their food, and for them, it's not even a matter of being hungry or, you know, needing to. Of course, she gets her food here, but it's just it's in their nature. They're a little like animal of prey, where they like to hunt. It's just, you know, the way God made them. God made them great hunters too. As you know, cats have keen eyesight, keen smell. Great hearing. Their paws are extremely sharp, as you know. So their teeth are sharp. So God made them like a hunter, gave them a lot of the tools they would need to be a hunter. As you know, other cats, and in the cat family, of course, lions are at the top of the heap, right, in the food chain in the forest. So did she hide from the thunder last night? You know, that's a good question, Jean. She really didn't, actually. She wasn't afraid. She was wide-eyed and, you know, and looked toward the window. And then she kind of like, you know, looked at me as if to say, you know, what's going on? And when she saw that I wasn't nervous, I think if she saw me jump and run, you know, away or something, you know, she would get nervous too. But when she saw me being calm, knowing that, you know, I wasn't too worried about it, although I did notice it, I think it calmed her. She looked at me after she heard it, and then she saw me not really reacting too much, and then she just, you know, ignored it. So yeah, she's been, and see how like cuddly she's been, like, because I was away for a week. So usually she wouldn't want to stay this long, you know, to be pet. But you know, she's, like I said, I was away for a week, and she was taken very good care of while I'm gone. I always appreciate some of the staff, you know, that comes in and feeds her and takes care of her, and you know, they're low maintenance, but still they. And my Aunt Mary is saying that she's beautiful. Thank you, Auntie. Yeah, she's a rag doll, as you know. And it's amazing she's not squirming away. You know, usually I hold her for a little bit and she squirms away. So, you know, I think we could, you know, I want to talk about something that people have been writing me, and they're afraid. They're really afraid of the events that are taking place right now, and they're scared. And I can really understand that. And, you know, it's amazing what we've been through, isn't it, recently? You know, we were afraid. Think about the pandemic, how afraid we were of that. And now that's like nothing compared to what's going on now. I think I'd rather have a pandemic than like unrestrained rioting and looting and arsony and tearing down of statues on public property. I'd rather have a pandemic than that. We thought we had it rough with the pandemic, but wow, I mean, we really have it rough now. But you know, no matter what happens, if America doesn't wake up and vote the right way in November, we're stuck. And we just have to live in a reality of a country that's going to be hostile to freedom of religion, freedom of speech. We're already experiencing it now. We really can't say anything right now. We'll be canceled in the cancel culture, or labeled a racist, or picketing will happen in front of our homes or our businesses. So really, we can't say anything. We've lost our First Amendment right to freedom of speech, and that's the hard thing. That's a hard reality. That's very sad and unfortunate for us, isn't it? That as Americans, we can't speak our mind, and so that's just the way it is right now. And maybe it'll get worse. I mean, depending upon what happens in the election, it could very well get a lot worse. And if it does, then we Christians have to remember that we're made in the image and likeness of God, that we're ultimately, our soul is protected by Him. And something I always want to mention too is that I also want to mention too that we are, I love that gospel passage. We just had it recently where Jesus says, don't worry of what can harm the body, but worry about what can harm the body and the spirit, and throw it into Gehenna. So that really is what we have to be mindful about, is that as long as we're right with God, that's really all that matters when you think about it. Because if you think the world is upside down now, which it is, but the world has been upside down for a while. It's been upside down for a long time. And people have been making very, very poor decisions for a long time. Hang on one second. Let me shut the door because I think they're doing work out there. So I'm going to just run to the door here. Let me shut it. So like I said, I think that we've been upside down a while, and the inmates have been running the insane asylum for a while in this country. Let's face it, and we Christians have been more and more silent. They've tried more and more to silence us and to ridicule us. And hang on, Francesca. Let me hang on a second. So they really have been trying to ridicule us and to prevent us from practicing our faith, and we can't let them do that. We have to be strong and firm in our faith and be willing to do whatever we can to prevent this trend from happening. And really what that means as Christians in America is to vote. It really is our only option right now. Do we want to jeopardize our job or our family or, our property? I mean, look at this poor guy in St. Louis. Here he is defending his property. Now, think about this. Aren't protesters supposed to only protest in an area where they're designated to? I think you have to have a permit or something to protest in a certain area. I think so. It might be that way in St. Louis. I think it is here. But if we wanted to just go and protest, I don't know if, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought you needed a permit and the guidelines were going to be set. Okay, you can protest, but you can only protest in the way, where you're going to indicate you'll be going. That's what I thought. I could be wrong. But these people break through a private gate and they start to threaten the property of this couple. And this couple comes out with a big, gun, big rifle, whatever they had. I don't know guns, so I don't know. He was just holding this big rifle. Now, they didn't shoot it, but just, telling them, look, back off the property. This is my home and I don't want it, completely, burnt to the ground. So he was defending his home. And he's the enemy right now among some of the, very liberal press. How dare he threaten protesters, and, when his home is being threatened and he's just trying to defend it because the police aren't there. The police are not around nowadays. They're trying their best, but, they just can't be around. So that's, that's kind of the state that we find ourselves in right now. And it is kind of scary. And it'll be worse depending upon what happens in November 3rd. But we really have to hang in there and, like I say, pray. I don't know how good of an idea it will be if we were to, confront them and like surround a statue of Christopher Columbus, for example. I think personally it would be a good idea for the Knights of Columbus, to come up with an idea. Have some of the younger men of their group defend statues of Christopher Columbus. I just can't believe how quickly, how accepting everyone seems to be about letting these people take down statues that were put up there in a democracy and should be taken down in a democracy. So it's really unfortunate. But like I said, really the only thing that we can do is pray. And we could vote, of course, and I'm all for whatever petitions we want to sign or whatever. But I really think that prayer is the answer, because if we're praying really hard, praying the rosary every day, adoration, praying the divine office, going to mass, contemplative prayer. If we're doing that and November happens, November 3rd comes, and the world becomes upside down because of the election, then at least we'll have prayer, of course, that'll help us and fortify us. We're not going to go out on the streets and scream or accuse the person who won of being, of fixing the election, because they're, we just pray. We just continue to pray. We'll live in November 3rd. After November 3rd, if we're not careful as Americans and we vote the wrong way, we'll be living in a country that will be radically, radically different than what we remember as the country being. It's already different than it was, even in the 70s or 80s, but it'll be even more radically different. And that's something that we have to just cope with. People are writing me and saying, Father, what do I do? And how do I, I don't know what I'm going to do if the election doesn't turn out, the right way. Well, I think what we do is we're look at the Spanish Revolution, look at the French Revolution. There have been, look in Mexico, there have been many, many times in which Christians have lived in Western countries, Portugal, in Western countries where the government was hostile to the church. This happened many, many times. St. Jose Maria Escrivá, person of saint to whom I have a strong devotion, in his time, where he lived in the Spanish Revolution, the Spanish Civil War, and actually there was a priest who looked like him. There was a priest who looked like St. Jose Maria Escrivá, and the government killed that priest who looked like him. And so St. Jose Maria's life was spared because of the sacrifice of another priest who looked like him. And St. Jose Maria Escrivá always said that he prayed for this priest every single day. Every day he thanked God for this priest, and he prayed for him because he felt terrible, of course, that the assassination was meant for him, and because a priest looked like him, they shot that other priest and killed him. So, let's face it, why should we be any different in our time than other Christians who lived in other parts of the world during the course of history who have been persecuted? Look at Portugal when Our Lady of Fatima appeared. The Portuguese government was extremely hostile to the church. We don't think of that. We don't realize that, until we look into the story of Fatima. We look at Portugal as, oh my goodness, Portugal, it's the shining hill on the Catholic, it's in city, it's like, they're on their knees, praying on their knees in front of the statue of Our Lady of Fatima. They have their white, kerchiefs that they honor the Blessed Mother as they wave them at her. Portuguese parishes are some of the most thriving and active and Catholic, they're Orthodox Catholics who are Portuguese typically. very, very devout people. But that wasn't always the case. Catholics in Portugal had to undergo terrible persecutions around the time of the early part of the last century. So that's what we have to ask ourselves. What makes us any different? Why should we felt insulated by these persecutions. We would see them go on with Christians in the Middle East, Christians in Africa, in history, even Christians, as I said, in Western countries. But we thought, well, that's not going to happen to us because we're American and we have the Constitution and we have protections, and people, will respect, the Constitution, and they'll respect the law of order, the order of law. They'll understand that if they break the law, they have to go to jail. So, but when that breaks down, when now all of a sudden, not only are you breaking the law by stripping someone else of their First Amendment rights, or stripping a town of a statue that they decided was going to be there, but a mob decides it's coming down, and nothing happens to them. They don't get prosecuted. They don't get put in jail. Yet the people who try to defend their house in St. Louis are now being prosecuted. So you're not prosecuting the people who are causing the riots but you're prosecuting the people who are defending their property. This is the world in which we live, and this will only get worse in November if we don't stop it politically by voting. So, but you know what? If it does happen, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Yes, America will be radically different. Yes, many police departments will be defunded, and there'll be more riots in the street, and there'll be looting, and it could even happen to your house. Already in Westerly, there was a warning that someone's going around and stealing things out of cars. So the police chief gave us an emergency call, a robocall, to tell us to be on the alert because many cars have been broken into. We're fortunate. We have a great police department in Westerly, and I think the town of Westerly does not want to defund them. If you were to take a poll, even the Democrats, I think, in Westerly don't want that. So we're fortunate here, but who knows what can happen in the future? We don't know. So, but you know what? We do know that we have Christ, and we do know that He'll protect us. So, really, guys, don't be afraid of that. I mean, November 3rd is scary, and if the elections don't go the way that they need to for the protection of our country and our property and our religion and our way of life, okay, we're going to live, that's when democracy breaks down. Democracy, we always talk about a monarchy versus a democracy, and everyone always says, oh, democracy is the best, and it's great, and that's really how we have to have a government set up, not with a divine right monarch who's loyal to the Pope, and that system didn't work. Well, our experiment has been going pretty well since 1776. We've been doing very well, and and the argument is democracy works, and we have proof because since 1776, it's been it's been working. So it was there was no argument then anymore about what was better, a democracy or a divine right monarch, because democracy was working so well and everyone agreed with that. So if you said divine right monarch, you would be laughed out of town. And what are you, crazy? We live in a democracy. It's the greatest thing because we can vote. But what happens though in a democracy when you don't have a turnover from administrations and the president that's peaceful? Every single time we've had turnovers of the presidency, except 4 years ago, it's been peaceful. It's been a peaceful transition. We went from maybe like Jimmy Carter to Ronald Reagan. We went from George Bush to Bill Clinton. There were times in which it was Gerald Ford to Jimmy Carter, Eisenhower to Kennedy. So in all of those instances when there was a one party rule losing and the other party coming in, there's always been a very peaceful transition, and that's something that we've always touted and lauded. And that's something George Bush was very proud of. He and Obama were arch enemies politically. They were from different parties, but George Bush, had told Brock, come in, welcomed him, made sure that the government was running properly for him, gave him the reins of his administration to do what he needed to do because he was elected duly by the people. But 4 years ago, that we're finding out that didn't happen, that there was a very hostile way in which the president, the outgoing president, was very hostile toward the incoming president. And all of these spies and leaking and all of this stuff has caused so much turmoil in our country. And that's, one of the reasons why we're in the mess we're in right now. Another reason why democracy could fail is because we don't have an objective press. So, in order to have a democracy, and it be a real vibrant and robust democracy, and it needs a referee. It needs the press, the media, to not take sides, to not be partisans, and to just be a referee, to report the news as it is, not trying to report it so you can get one person out of office and put another one in. Just report the news, just the facts. Let the people decide. Give them the without a bias or opinion. Report the news the way that it was meant to be by the journalists being objective, and then the people decide. The people can say, well, okay, I don't like this or I do like that. But if you have a whole media force that is rooting for one candidate over the other, and you hear crickets when the candidate they support did something very bad, and they're on a bent to try to bring down a president they don't like and not ignore any little aspect of something that may have gone wrong, then you know that we're in trouble, because we can't have a media. We can't have 5 or 6 outlets, big major media outlets that are rooting and cheering for one side over the other. Of course, if you're on the side of them, you think, hey, that's great. I'm happy about that because they're on my side. But really, though, I think anybody who's an American, who's on the side of the mainstream media, should really reflect on that and say, is it really a good idea for them? I know I like it, and I like reading the New York Times. I like watching MSNBC. I like watching CNN. I love all of that because they're finding every little crumb and crevice, and they're exploring it, and they're trying to really do everything they can to bring down the candidate I don't like, and they're doing everything they can to prop up the candidate I do like. But we have to ask ourselves, is that really a good thing for democracy? Should we just have a press and a media force and journalists who just totally just are objective and they don't belong to any political party? I think if you're a journalist, you shouldn't be an activist. If you want to be if you want to be an activist and you want to support one party over the other, then do something else. Be a political activist, work on a campaign, be a campaign manager, get involved politically in your neighborhood, run for office, but don't become a journalist, because a journalist should be objective, and they should just give us the facts and give us the truth. Now, some could say, well, but Fox News isn't, very, partial. They're very, they're not impartial. They're very, very partial to the other side of MSNBC and who they like. Well, yeah, because they're an outgrowth of that. In 1996, they came up with the great idea, because of the bias in the mainstream media, to combat it with a more conservative network. And it's only one against 5 or 6. Plus, most of the universities, even the Catholic universities, are controlled by the liberal idea of governing and very anti-church. Even Catholic schools, Catholic colleges are anti-Catholic, Orthodox Catholicism. So we send our kids to school and they come back and then we don't recognize them. So these are all the things we have to deal with. Like teachers should be objective. A college should be objective and just say, okay, I'm going to give you the historical facts. This is how it is. and not have an agenda. And when they do, like I said, this is the breakdown of a democracy. So democracy is great as long as there is an objective press, and academia is objective as well, letting children and kids in school make up their own mind, to be open-minded and not try to proselytize or brainwash them into believing one side over the other. So that's why I fear for democracy. I don't know in my lifetime if we can hold with a democracy, because what happens if the candidate that these people who are causing all this destruction wins? Now the other side is going to be really angry, and the other side is going to say, wait a minute, you guys just took over the country by force, and destroying property and pulling down statues. Well, we're going to do it now. And then what happens? And then the other side starts, and then the politicians who support these riots now, oh no, you cannot riot. That's wrong. You're destroying property. You don't have a right permit. We're going to prosecute you to any rioter to the hilt. Once the mob that's doing all of this gets into power, if they do, then all of a sudden those politicians who support that mob now, oh no, you cannot riot. You cannot tear down statues. They're sacred to the country. You cannot kill anyone in cold blood without being prosecuted for it. Oh no, you cannot riot in the street and threaten someone else's property. Oh no. So all of a sudden, it's the tide is going to switch, and the politicians who agree with the mob and agree with a lawless mentality are not going to be agreeing with a lawless mentality anymore when it's the opposite side who's being lawless. So this is the state we're in. But again, rejoice and be glad, because look at the French Revolution. Look at the Jacobins. They were just chopping off heads left and right. They called it a revolution, but it was a godless, horrific, anti-Catholic, anti-Christ, anti-democracy movement, because they were a mob. You can't have a mob take over a country like what happened in France and in the French Revolution. A mob took over the country, and we can't have that. And if we do, then we're going to live with the consequences. And I hope my brother priests are going to be strong enough too. That's why we have to pray too, because my brother priests have to be strong. If the elections go a way in which will be very harmful to Christianity, and there's a change of administration in Washington, be prepared. Be prepared for persecutions, but you know what? Rejoice and be glad. I mean, that's the greatest thing that can happen to us in a sense, because that's really the greatest way to get to heaven. And that's what that's how Thomas More felt. There's a great book I'd like you to read if with the pandemic and everything, summer, you might want a good read. Peter Ackroyd wrote a book about Thomas More. And I can't Google it, but it's called Peter Ackroyd, and it's a book about Thomas More. And it's, I think, the best biography written about him. But More is so right for our times. He grew up in a very Catholic culture. England was just as Catholic as Spain and France and Italy and Portugal. And all of a sudden, in a snap of the finger, like this, like all of a sudden, a snap of the finger, like what happened to us, our culture, in a snap of the finger, all of a sudden everything's different. The same thing was true with him in his time. King Henry VIII, who ended up dying of syphilis, wanted to divorce his wife and marry his mistress, Anne Boleyn. He ended up executing Anne Boleyn and several other wives along the way. But this was the anarchy that was happening in England at the time. It was anarchy. It was, you couldn't celebrate a Catholic mass, or you'd be killed. Many martyrs were killed because in England after King Henry VIII declared himself the head of the Church of England. Devastation takes place when we live in a lawless society, one that's not based on natural law, and that really is our problem, because these protesters are not 50 years old. They're not 60 years old. They're not in their 40s even. These are protesters who are young people who grew up in families where they weren't told no. Probably they were given trophies even if they lost. They weren't brought up with religion. They weren't brought up with knowing the Blessed Sacrament, with knowing the sacraments, or maybe they were, and then they went to a liberal Catholic school or a liberal state school, and were convinced through these professors that that liberalism is the answer to problems, and looting and rioting are the answers to problems when you don't get your way. Now, if the election, like I said, goes their way in November, then all the liberals are going to be against looting and rioting and all that. So they're only for it when it serves their purposes, but they'll be against it, and very much against it, and start prosecuting all kinds of people who try to protest and riot in the future if they don't have their way. So this is the problem. They're young people. They're 30 or younger, as you see the crowd, and that really is our problem. That's our problem. And we knew it. We knew there was a problem with the millennials. We knew that the way they were being educated and the way they were being brought up, we knew there was a problem. And I saw it coming, and I think a lot of us saw it coming. Like, what are these kids going to do? How are they going to have the skill sets they need to take care of, to know the difference between no, they can't have something, they're not going to mass, they're not making their sacraments, they're not getting married in church, they're getting married outside of the church, they're living together before marriage, they're fathering children before marriage. So you look at the mess that the millennials are in. We would look at it from a distance and see them growing up in a much different way in which we grew up, where you got married in church as a Catholic, where you didn't live together before marriage, where you had children after you were married. You brought your children up to make their sacraments, to practice their faith. So we grew up in that kind of an environment. We're looking at these millennials and thinking, gee whiz, what's going to happen? I think some people I'm 55. I think some people in my age group were thinking, it's not going to be a problem. You watch. I know they're not growing up with religion. I know they're not growing up with going to mass. I know they're not growing up with the sacraments. I know they're living together before marriage. They're going on vacation together before marriage. That never would have happened when I was growing up, or in my parents' generation, where kids would just go to vacation together and they weren't married. The parents are like, hey, have a good time, so that would never happen. So, you think about all of this and you think, what are the consequences? And what I was told by some people, don't worry about the consequences. They're still going to be good people. They're just going to grow up without religion and without the structure of understanding relationships and marriage and what their sexuality is meant for. But, don't worry about it. They'll still be good citizens because they're smart and clever and they're good with technology, and they'll find a job and eventually they'll settle down. Well, we're seeing the consequences now of the results of the kind of upbringing that these rioters are having. You look at them; they're all in their 20s, or their teens, that wouldn't have happened in the 1980s. It wouldn't have happened in the 1970s, although there were riots and there were things in the 60, 68 convention of the Democratic Party. There was upheaval, but it was nothing like this. And that's what people tell me who lived through that. They're like, Father, it's nothing like the late 60s. Late 60s was tough and there were riots and everything, but this is nothing like that. It doesn't feel the same way either as it did in the late 60s, as bad as that was. Let's see what happens in the late 60s. All this turmoil and riots, and what happened? They elected twice a law and order president. I don't know. Maybe that's going to happen again. I would not feel bad. Don't be discouraged about the polls. That's why the polls are there. They're there to discourage you. They're there to make you feel like you don't even go out to vote because it's a fait accompli. That's the whole plan that they have. It's all designed. All of this is designed to discourage you. That's what all it's designed for. And it's to make you feel like you can't win, like it's a lost cause. Why even bother going to vote? But know what they're up to. We knew what they were up to last time, right? And 4 years ago, when every single poll was going one way, and then the election happened and it was the opposite. So why should this year be different? Don't be discouraged by it. But don't put your hopes on it either. Almost shrug your shoulders who wins or not. It doesn't really matter really who wins the presidency or who wins the House just shrug your shoulders. We're Christians. We're Catholic. We live in a different universe. We're God's children, and we're not of the world. That's what Jesus says. He says, Father, I know they're in the world, but they're not of the world. We're really not of this world. We don't belong to this world. Yeah, we do, in the sense that we make a cappuccino in the morning and we go to work and we, labor so other people can benefit from our work. That's the beauty of work, is other people benefit from it. But realize that we're not of this world. This world, look at the turmoil that has happened in the past where Christians have lived through, and then they've gone to their reward. So really the only thing that you need to worry about is the state of your soul, and that you're practicing your faith and going to mass and confession and pray that if they win in November, pray that they at least let us go to mass. They're going to make a lot of changes. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to inhibit us from practicing our faith. But just pray that they let us go to mass. If they don't, and then, we just do it anyway and defy the law, we have to do that. So we really, but let's not worry about something that hasn't happened yet. But it doesn't matter, because we're not of this world. We don't belong to this world. When we are baptized and claim ourselves to Christ, and he's our Lord and Savior, and we receive his precious body, blood, soul, and divinity in the Eucharist, and because he says, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life within you. For whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in him. And so as long as we're connected in that important way to Christ, then the mountains may fall, the hills turn to dust, but the glory of God will still stand. And we're assured of our eternal reward. Let's face it, 10,000 years from now, when we're experiencing our reward in heaven with God, what is, our 70, 80, 90 years of life on earth are minuscule compared to eternity. And we'll probably remember what happened, but it won't bother us because we'll be in heaven, and we'll be with God. We're protected by him, and he loves us. And that really is what's important for us to glean from all of this. People are writing me and saying they're scared. Be not afraid, because it doesn't matter what happens in November. Vote, and hopefully the side that's going to protect us will win. But don't be worried about it, because we'll be protected. We'll be helped, and the priests will be there for you. There are beautiful priests in my diocese who do tremendous work with their people in ministry, and they're great pastors, they're great priests, they're very dedicated. We don't get together as often as I'd like to with my priest friends, especially because I'm all the way down here in Westerly, but there are some I don't really know that well, but I hear very good things about, and I know what a good priest they are. So stay close to your parish, stay close to your parish priest. Let him guide you by his homilies and his sermons and his prayers, and get involved in the parish, in the rosary societies, or, we have an adoration here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and at an Immaculate Conception. Come in and pray before the Blessed Sacrament. And God will help us. He'll protect us. He'll guide us along the right path. No matter what happens, really, no matter what happens, he says to us, be not afraid. So really try to take that to heart, and know that your priest will. I'm convinced the priests that I know and have worked with, they will be very, very strong in all of this. And if the elections don't go the way that we would like them to, then we have priests that will be fighting every step of the way for us and for the freedom of us celebrating mass and practicing our faith. Having they want to take down even Catholic statues. I'm not going to let that happen myself, but unless they'll have to take me with them because they're very important sacramentals. But I know a lot of priests that feel that way. So, don't let your hearts be troubled. You have faith in God, have faith in Christ. That's what he teaches us. And one of my favorite gospel passages is from Matthew, where Jesus says, I am, he says, that do not let your hearts be troubled. That's the one I was saying. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You have faith in God and have faith in me. And my Father's house, there are many dwelling places. If there were not, would I not be inviting you to one of them? So that really is our ultimate home. This is a place that we are here for, few decades or several decades, to do the best we can here on earth. And to seek him out. So, I hope that helped. And because it's hard to respond to every one of you through, messaging. And I'm so busy, especially now that we've opened, now, it was kind of a little easier to stream and, I was kind of inside, but now that we're open more, I have more responsibilities. And, but I still, of course, want to connect with you this way in prayer because it's so important that we do. And I'm doing it for myself too. I mean, I want to pray the rosary every day. I want to pray the Litany of Mary every day. I want to pray in my office every day. So, why not us do it together? When you can make it, then join me. So, and keep praying, our parents who have passed and our grandparents could never imagine an America like we're seeing right now. They couldn't have imagined it. The greatest generation who fought for the rights against fascism could never imagine that our country might be turning to that kind of a mob rule and riots. I don't think they could have ever fathomed that greatest generation. And that really is when we started to get into trouble, especially as Orthodox Catholics, is getting into trouble with when the greatest generation died, because they were voting and they were a strong voting bloc. And they were keeping these politicians in line. But now you have more millennials than you do the greatest generation. So we're seeing the results of that. And it's sad, we love the greatest generation. They were our grandparents, our parents, they had such great values and they were just such great people of prayer, and they loved their religion. They loved their parish. They loved their priest. As a whole, they were just a tremendous. And I was afraid. I was thinking, boy, when they go and we don't have them as an advocate and voting bloc, because they voted, those elderly people of the greatest generation, when they got old, they voted and they let their voices be heard, and politicians snapped to attention when they expressed their opinions about something. And I was thinking, boy, what's going to happen? We're going to lose our parents. That's how I thought. I thought when they die, and when John Paul II passes, when they pass, when that generation dies, we're in trouble. And I was right. I hate to admit it, but I was right. But it's the kind of trouble we want, in a sense, because we got to be ready for it. And I was talking about Thomas More. Thomas More thanked the king. Thomas More thanked the king for imprisoning him, putting him in the Tower of London, because he said, if it wasn't for being imprisoned, and if it wasn't for the king being so gracious to strip him of everything, he never would have been able to draw as close to God as he was in the Tower of London. So he thanked the king. He was grateful to the king for imprisoning him and stripping him of his many, many goods. He was one of the richest men in England at the time that he resigned his chancellorship. And here he is thanking the king. So we have to thank our enemies in a sense, especially if the election goes, unfortunately, the other way, which I really don't think it will, but that's another matter. But if it does, then let's thank our persecutors when it happens and say it's making us stronger. It may make us smaller too, because people might not want to go through the persecutions. But if we do, then we have to rejoice and be glad when we're persecuted for the sake of God, for the sake of righteousness, for the sake of the kingdom. And we'll be united with many, many, many Christians throughout history who have had the same kind of issues and struggles that we'll have. God forbid if things happen in November in a way in which will really harm us. So, but take heart though, as I said, and we'll always have our cappuccino with Father Capoverdi. So it's been a real wonderful pleasure to be here with you and reading your comments as I'm talking, and I'll read them more closely when I can, but I'm just reading them now a little bit as I'm filming this. So we'll see you next time. I'm going to be in the chapel at noon for Rosary and Adoration and Benediction, and join me if you can. Tonight, I didn't put it on the schedule because we're not going to film it. We're not going to be streaming it, but we have a youth meeting tonight of teens and the parish. So between us and St. Pius, we have been going back and forth. So that'll be great. Pray for us tonight with our teens and our youth group. So that'll be I think from 6:30 to 8. So but then I'll see you for Vespers, and I'll see you for night prayer. So have a blessed morning, and hopefully I encourage you a little bit. Just stay focused on prayer. Stay focused on God. On his son, our Lord Jesus Christ, and we'll get through it. So, and keep praying. Pray, vote, pray. Pray, vote, pray. Pray, vote, pray. 3 words that I want to leave you with. God bless. Okay, see you, YouTube. I'm sorry I'm spending so much time looking there. I should look at you too. So, but I'll see you soon.